Hello, and welcome to Bookends, a show for teens who love to read. Today, I'm here with 3 members from the Interesting Reader Society, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
I'm Jessie, and I've been in the IRS for 2 years, and I'm homeschooled.
I'm Maisie. I'm a senior at Poudre High School, and I've been in the IRS for 3 years.
I'm Angel. I'm going to be a senior at Rocky Mountain High School, and I've been in IRS for a year.
Very cool. And the IRS, as you guys know, is the Interesting Reader Society. It's for the Poudre River Public Library District. It's the teen, library board for that. And so I think it's kind of cool how we're all in that. Okay, so we have some books to discuss today, so I'll let Maisie go first.
Okay, the first one I have is politically correct bedtime stories, which is a collection of fairy tales told in a style that can't offend anyone ever. And it's a work of comedy, and so it has little things like the 3 Billy Goats Gruff. They actually get into an argument with the troll under the bridge about, no, I'm in the wrong here, you're in the right, I swear. And people are constantly saying things like, oh, we shouldn't be against them because of their socioeconomic income, and just it's funny. It makes fun of people who try to be really PC, but it's also just silly, and it's appropriate for all ages because it is so politically correct. But it probably makes more sense and is funnier if you're slightly older, so maybe high school.
That sounds awesome. I really want to read that now. Jessie, would you like to discuss a book?
Sure. All right, the book I have today is called Clarity, and it's by Kim Harrington. And I really like this book because Clarity is really spunky, and what she based, her family, her family is she's a psychic, and her whole family is a version of psychics, and what her power or gift is that she can touch things and memories come to her, only certain things, and she has trouble with it sometimes. Her mom can read minds, and her brother Perry can he can talk to the dead and stuff. And I really like this book because she is really funny and really spunky. And what she does is there's a murder in her small town, and the people living in her town really don't like her family, but tourists and stuff really get a kick out of them and stuff. And so I really like this book.
Sounds really cool. I can't wait to read that. Okay, Angel, would you like to discuss a book?
Yes, the first book that I have here today is Web Mage by Kelly McCullough. The main character is Ravern. He's the ever so many great-grandson of one of the Fates, one of the 3 Fates, Clotho, Lachesis, and, sorry, it's really hard to pronounce. The other one starts with an A. I'm sorry. Atropos. Atropos is his great aunt, and, first, the thing I have to point out in this book, it is set in the 20th century, 21st, actually, sorry, but there's magic, but it's related to technology and computers. Mm-hmm. So Ravern has his little familiar. He's a goblin, a web goblin named Melicor. He can become a computer when he's doing his classes, and goblin form when he's doing magic. They get into some trouble. Ravern is actually a magic genius, but computer genius. He's a hacker, and he takes apart other spells, which are computer programs that others make, and he searches for any flaw and hacks into Great Aunt Atropos.
It's okay.
We'll call her Great Aunt A.
It's Greek names. It's hard to pronounce. He breaks into her security, and that gets him into a whole load of troubles. He has to fight Furies, and he meets the goddess of Discord, but it all comes together in a really kind of explosive ending. So it's good for people who wouldn't mind reading, well, not actually reading, but just looking at long computer script. So
That's awesome.
Sounds really cool.
Yeah, normally in the magic sense, it's all fairies and everything is kind of
Wizards.
Exactly, and I always think it's really cool when someone gets a new twist on the whole magic idea. Okay, who would like to discuss the next book?
I can.
Okay.
Moving away from sort of the fantasy science fiction genre, it's The Saints of Augustines by P.E. Ryan. I love this book, and I cry every time I read it. But it's about two best friends named Sam and Charlie, who were best friends. But a year ago, Sam just suddenly decides to cut Charlie out of his life completely. And then, as Charlie, this star basketball player, he starts to do a lot of drugs, he loses his girlfriend, his mom dies, and then Sam's got this whole awkward situation with his parents getting divorced, and his stepdad's a jerk, and really they like sort of they're trying to work through their own lives falling apart, and they just sort of keep getting thrown back together even though they haven't spoken in a year. And it's kind of like a trip into the male psyche. So like this book is like a teenage boy in essence, and it's just fantastic, and it's got its funny moments and its really sad moments, and I cry every time.
That sounds like an awesome book. I love it how there are so many different, like, anything. I'm just rambling on here, but it's just, I love books in general because there's so much that can be in just one novel.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Okay.
Jesse, you can go.
Yes, I can. All right. This book is called Forgotten, and it's by,
Nice. Very nice.
who is it by? There we go, Kat Patrick. And the plot is that a girl, every time she goes to sleep at night, she loses her memory of that day. Like, so she'll remember her mom, and like, if she had a pet or something, she would remember that. But basically, she doesn't remember yesterday or any of the days before that. And so, and then she starts getting these really weird memories from the past. And like, so she's trying to piece together this puzzle, and sometimes she can like see into the future, which sounds kind of odd, but like only like for little things and stuff. But I thought it was a really like creative plot. Like, you forget everything about yesterday, like the little things. And so it's basically kind of like a mystery about what she's trying to piece together about what happened. And I guess that's basically it.
That's really cool.
It sounds like an intense version of 50 First Dates.
Yeah, I know. That's just what I was thinking. It's prettier.
Yes, it is.
Angel, would you like to discuss the next book?
Yes, I would. The next one that I have here is Divergent by Veronica Roth. In this scenario of pretty much the 21st century, the world is broken up into different groups, or you can actually call them different sects. There's Agnation, Dauntless, and a couple of others. This book talks about the life of a girl. Her name is Beatrice, and she's in Agnation, which they only have the simplest things, and they're very generous and forgiving. They give to everyone that they see that needs help. But when they turn 16, any children in all of the different groups, when they turn 16, there's this big gathering, and they have to choose whether they want to stay with their group or choose a different one. And she goes against what the Agnation, which is the ones that forgive, and goes with the Dauntless, which is basically the acrobats. You could call them goth. They wear a lot of black. They're the acrobats. They do really daring and kind of stupid stunts. Like, for her initiation, she has to jump from a moving train and onto a roof. And I mean, people do die. That's the Dauntless
Sounds kind of easy to
initiation.
do.
Yeah, train, 50 miles an hour, roof.
Fun. I do that every day.
Yeah, of course.
So it just records her time going through Dauntless to become an actual member. The first person she meets is Four, who is a member of Dauntless, and he's really high up for certain reasons she doesn't know yet. He actually teaches the initiates. Needless to say, when she was getting tested, which is something they do the very last day of school, she became what was called a divergent. She has characteristics of all the groups. So she has to keep quiet about that, and it causes a whole bunch of trouble for her.
Nice.
Especially
that was a
with-
good plot twist, having a little trouble thrown in there.
Yeah.
That sounds really good.
So cool.
I love the cover. It's like an eye with the fire. That's awesome. Well, if it's okay with you guys, I have a couple books I would love to discuss. Okay. Well, my book that I have is Lauren, now I always mess this up. I think it's pronounced Miracle, but it's Lauren Miracle's Peace, Love, and Baby Ducks. It is one of my favorite books I have ever read, and it is just so funny. It's about the main character. Her name is Carly, and she's always been, she's pretty, but she's not drop dead gorgeous, and she has a lot of really awesome characteristics, like she's really funny and she likes 60s music, and and she grows up in a town where everyone is expected to be the same on many different levels, and everyone is very wealthy, and she's always kind of feeling like, geez, this is kind of a judgmental society we're growing up in, and everyone kind of is all and everyone's business. And she has her little sister. Well, when Carly goes away for a summer, when she comes back, her sister Anna she's just this drop-dead gorgeous girl, and she's going into high school. So Carly's kind of like, oh, this will be fun. But then Anna turns out to be kind of, everyone wants to be with Anna, and everyone kind of forgets Carly a little bit. So it's a little bit more, it's tough for Carly, because she always feels like she's like competing with her sister now against her for her father's love and her mother's attention, and it's tough for Carly. This book is really mostly about sisters and family, and I know, because I think that's funny. I can really enjoy that because, I have a sister. It's a really sweet, funky, funny book, and I really love this. This is I have 2 copies, and this is my not so well loved copy. Anyway, that book just makes me happy every time I read it.
And then Lauren Miracle's a local author, right?
Yes, she is. She's really awesome. I've been lucky enough to meet her, and she's just such a cool person. Yeah. So, who would like to go next? Would you like to, Maisie?
Yeah. So, okay, the last book I just talked about, it's a slightly more adult teen book. This book actually says, like on the inside flap, that it's for ages 10 and up. And I love it because apparently I'm immature like that. But it's fabulous. It's Cap Hook by, who is it by? J.Y. Hart or J.V. Hart. I can't read that font. But, so essentially, it's the story of Captain Hook's childhood. And so it's like he's attending Eton, which is this fancy prep school or like college for boys, and he's just sort of he's coming into his own as a bad guy, because it is a story told from the point of view of a future antagonist. I know it's like, I personally loved it because it's funny. Like at one point he becomes the master of pudding.
Very nice.
It was strange, but it's also like it has its little sort of side romance because he falls in love with the Sultana from the Ottoman Empire, and then it's also about like 2 best friends because he's best friends with Jolly Roger, who he eventually names his ship after. But it also has these little nods to the actual story of Peter Pan, like this guy who's constantly bullying him happens to be the father of Wendy, and. So it's just got great little things like that. And it has its creepy moments. He bleeds yellow.
Oh.
But it's got its really uplifting moments, and it explains the whole idea with the second star to the right and straight on till morning.
That's awesome.
And it's just this great little story, and I really adored it. And it's illustrated, so that's great.
Who doesn't love pictures? I love books like that because you're not immature. The books that are even for kids can be like some of the best books. Like I freaking love Winnie the Pooh.
Oh, yeah, it's fabulous. No, I kind of think it's not a little kiddish book. It has a very mature concept it tackles, just in a way that's appropriate for most ages.
That's awesome. Sounds like a really good book.
All right. Okay. This book I have is called Sweet Venom, and it's by Tara Lynn Childs. And what it's basically about is that there are 3 sisters descended from Medusa. And she was actually the guardian, and someone was jealous of her, and I'm sorry, I forgot. But so they pretended that she was a bad guy. So there's Gretchen, Greer, and there's Grace. And Gretchen is the one who grew up, she didn't grow up, but she was found first, and she knows how to fight monsters. And Grace, what happened was she got this minotaur, and it walked into the restaurant she was eating at, and apparently Gretchen came in. So then she got introduced to Gretchen, and then what happened, Greer doesn't come in until way later. So they're all 3 very different personalities, and I really like that. But what I really liked about the book was that I think it was really good how she thought of the little creatures that would come along and how she pieced things together. And I can't really give it away because
no spoilers.
Yep, exactly. I'm always afraid of doing that. But I really like this book. And I would say, like, for the age group is about, like, maybe 11 and up, I don't know. It's not that violent or anything. It's a pretty good book, and I really liked it.
That's awesome.
I think it's really neat that like both of you guys had a book that's sort of a twist on Greek mythology.
Yeah.
It's neat
I love
how that's
that.
showing up.
That's really awesome. So, that's so cool. Angel, would you like to discuss some of the book?
Yes. The last book I have is Except the Queen by Jane Yolen and Midori Snyder. There is kind of an adult theme in the beginning. There's Midora and her sister, and they are actually fairies. And as fairies, they're frolicking, you know, dancing, doing whatever they do. When they accidentally catch their queen sleeping with a man in the forest,
Very,
and that
very
gets
nice.
them in loads of trouble. They get banished down into the mortal world in the figures of old women. And they're on separate sides of the country, separate sides of the world, and they're trying to reconnect. One of them, I'm pretty sure it's Meteora, sorry. She lands in this city and she meets Baba Yaga, who actually owns a hotel, well, not a hotel, a building where she rents out to college students. And only Meteora can see the chicken legs underneath the stairs.
Very
Giant
awesome.
chicken legs.
Come on, chicken legs. Who could get sick of that?
I'd love to have my landlady be Baba Yaga.
That'd be so amazing.
Well, she's never there, so she asks Meteora to take care of the rent and everything. But in the building is Sparrow. She's this troubled girl, and one night she goes out and gets a tattoo. But it's not a normal tattoo. It's, in the plainest sense, evil.
Oh, an evil tattoo. Very
Yeah.
awesome.
So in the midst of helping Sparrow, Meteora is also managed to contact her sister by letter. And her sister finds what she calls the Shadow Boy. He actually showed up as kind of this little dog thing. But he was the son of Redcap, which is like the fairy murderer. He's the sort of like a skewed justice system. But Sparrow and the Shadow Boy actually have a great destiny ahead of them. And Meteora and her sister play a major part. And it kind of ends sweetly.
No spoilers. Come
I know.
on.
For all the violence in parts of the book, it ends really sweetly. So
Nice. It's probably a book for older ages.
I would say that.
Very cool.
Surprising because Jane Yolen she tends to write a lot of like children's or young adult fiction.
It's cool she's branching out. Well, if it's okay with you guys, I'm going to discuss another book because I'm just doing that. This book is called Someone Like You by Sarah Dessen. Now, Sarah Dessen is one of my favorite authors. And, you know, as much as I love her, most of the plots of her books are very, very similar. You know, there's a girl and she's troubled in one of the ways, and then she meets a boy and they fall in love and, you know, that sort of thing. Well, this book is not like that. This is one of the reasons I love this so much. This book is about Hallie and Scarlett. Hallie is Scarlett's best friend. She's very quiet. No one really knows her for Hallie. They know her as Scarlett's best friend because they're kind of inseparable, and she's not known for, you know, herself. She's known because of Scarlett, her best friend. Now, Scarlett is, you know, she's very outgoing, she's super brave, she's very beautiful, you know, and everyone loves her, of course. Well, and Hallie always sort of thought that she needed Scarlett, and then there's a big twist on the novel when Scarlett gets pregnant by Michael, her boyfriend, and then Michael dies in a motorcycle crash. So, you know, Scarlett's kind of left alone and she doesn't know what to do. So this book really shows how, like, you know, a quiet introvert girl, she just comes into her own when her friend really needs her. This book is not so much about romance, which is really different from most of Sarah Dessen's book. I mean, come on, there is some romance in here, but it's
Sarah Dessen tends to write romance
exactly
novels.
this is so much about friendship and love for a friend. And it's just really about how one can take care of the other and how everything can get switched around easy. And this book is just so sweet and touching, and it's one of my favorite books. Every time I read it, I cry because there's so many sad parts in this book, but everything works out, and it's fantastic. I just love this book so much, and it's a little well used. So, but I love Sarah Dessen's books. They're fantastic.
And a lot of her books, teens
Yeah.
can really relate to them.
Exactly. Like she writes one of my other favorite books is like The Truth About Forever or Just Listen.
I love Just Listen.
That's my favorite Sarah Dessen book, but aside from this one. So we're getting off. Sorry about that. So Maisie, would you like to discuss another one?
Oh, yeah. So the last one I have is The Complete Works of Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. This is my fancy, shiny copy. I have like 4 copies.
Very, very small. Easy to carry around, of course.
But what I've really, I know a lot of people have read Sherlock Holmes. They're classic. But I've run into the fact most of my female friends haven't. But it's a shame because they're such fun books. And, of course, I think a lot of people have the sort of the media stereotype of Sherlock Holmes and his, deerstalker hat, and, Watson is this bumbling assistant. And what's great about the books is Holmes is kind of insane. He does a lot of drugs, he plays violin at 3 in the morning, he's so intelligent, but he doesn't get social cues at all.
Yep.
And then Watson is this great lady killer. And, he's actually quite smart on his own. And I loved that about the books. And then, of course, there's such great stories, and you've got really short ones like the 5 Orange Pips, which is actually about the KKK, or you've got really long ones about the Hound of the Baskervilles, where it's this mysterious hound running around on these moors killing people, and then you have medium-sized ones, like my personal favorite, the Dancing Men, which is about codes and cracking a code of little stick figures. And yeah, they're surprisingly funny, given the fact Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was kind of a sad, grim dude. He didn't like writing these books. They were just a paycheck to him, but they're still just such great reads. He's got such a mastery of the language, and I know I always come out of reading these I put on a posh British accent and I talk like I'm from, the 18th century. They're just so much fun to read. And if the library doesn't have a specific story in, they're all available online for free because of the copyright or lack thereof.
Perfect. There you go. I love Sherlock Holmes, and it's one of those books, it's such a classic, and I think it's one of those books that everyone should read, but not a lot of people do. So it's kind of, I love it. Do you not?
Sherlock Holmes. Okay.
Yeah. So great. Jessie.
All right. Okay. This book is called Hereafter, and it's by Tara Hudson. And it's about a girl who drowned in the river. But she can only...
The joyful start.
Yep, but she can only remember her first name. Again, the forgetting thing. Okay.
It's okay.
But
it's a theme.
What happens in the first chapter, though, I really liked it how she just kind of jumped into the story. Because I think, maybe it was the second chapter, I can't remember. But what happens is that she sees a boy drowning in the river. And so basically she can't help him because she's a ghost. And so she doesn't even do anything. And what she does,
ghost.
Yep, I know. And what she does is basically he can see her in the water for a minute. And then he goes back up and he swims out. And then
So he's better.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And of course he doesn't leave her alone, And then he comes back and then they just start talking and stuff. And at first, she doesn't really know, but then they start trying to figure out her past and stuff. And I just like the mystery part in that it's really interesting. But she finally starts piecing her life back together because she died and she doesn't know if she jumped or if she just fell off or crashed or whatever. And she is just wandering around in the same forest for who knows how many years. And I just think it's a really interesting book, and I liked it.
It's very cool. It's interesting. Sometimes some books lead up to that point when the person becomes a ghost. I love it when they just jump in and they don't even leave room for. Yeah. They're just okay, here it is. Perfect.
Don't worry about how they got there. There
yeah. Yeah. Well, I am going to discuss my last book right now. This is My Sister's Keeper by Jodi Picoult. As Jodi Picoult is one of the most well-known authors of the day, and she just keeps getting more famous the more she writes. This is now major motion picture. Thank you. And the story plot is well known, but the movie is never as accurate as the book. So I thought I would discuss this today. This book is about a family the Fitzgeralds, Anna, Kate, Sarah, Brian, and Jesse. They're all a family. And then it's also about Campbell Alexander. He's a lawyer. And Julia, I cannot remember the last name, but she's not a huge character, so it's okay. Anna is Kate's sister. That's how she's known. Kate has leukemia, and she's very sick. And so Anna was brought into this world to make sure that Kate could survive. Anna was kind of like her parents had her to be a donor for Kate. So that puts Anna in a very awkward position because finally she's done. She doesn't want to give up her kidney to Kate, so she sues her parents for the rights to her own body. That's where Campbell Alexander fits in. He's her lawyer who helps sue her parents. So, you know, this book isn't just, it's not really, because when I first read it, I was kind of like, oh, this is just a book about a lawsuit, you know. It's really not. It's really about a family and how even in a situation like this, they can all really connect. Like, Jesse, her brother, is just having so many issues. Like, he burns down buildings for fun. He does drugs. He's really smart, but he just makes terrible choices. And her mom is just completely losing it since her daughter got sick. Her father is really never at home. It's just they're all, and then finally they all just kind of pull together to try to fix this last thing. And this book is really, once again, it's not so much about romance or anything. It's about family and love and trouble. But this book, mostly the word that I use to describe this book is loss, because there's so much sadness that goes on in this book. I mean, once again, I cry all the time in this book because it just makes me so sad. It is really just a fantastic book. Jodi Picoult has a lot of novels that have kind of the same storyline, like there's just a family and they're troubled, but this one kind of breaks out of that a little bit. It's a little bit more unique. So this is so good.
And what's really neat is there actually have been cases where people have done the same thing as this story,
exactly.
And like all the science she talks about is real.
She just nails it with all her medical knowledge. It's crazy. It just is like, she does such a good job. She doesn't just be like, oh, she's sick. She goes into describing exactly what kind of leukemia Kate has, and it's amazing.
It's really well researched, and it's beautifully written.
She's such a good writer. Well, guys, I think we're all done here today. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you guys had fun. I know I did. It was a good time. So, yeah, thanks again, and thank you for joining us on Bookends.